Hopefully you all got that message. And
Yes, I got
I'm
it.
going to call the meeting to order at 6:34 p.m. And the first item on the agenda is to amend if necessary, and then accept the agenda. Does anyone have any amendments to make to the agenda?
Well, I actually have two comments right away. One is that I did not realize I had put the POCD just as a quick update, and I didn't understand that there were plans tonight to actually discuss it. So if we want to, and Yos asked us to read ahead, if we want to address that, we probably should move it up further at some time, because I didn't understand that I thought it was just going to be a quick update. I didn't know where we were in the process. And the other thing is that when Jean comes on, we want to be flexible, because she's particularly coming on to discuss the ordinance. So we have to, I don't think we need to amend the agenda for that, but I think we can just change it when she comes on. Connie, well, however you want to do this, is up to you.
So
Okay,
the
I think
ordinance, I would say that should go to new business.
Well, two people talking at a time, can't hear.
Okay.
I don't think we need to change the agenda. I think both of those suggestions are duly noted, and I think that we can work with that.
I think the ordinance should be new business. That should go in the 6th, right?
Well, it was discussed last week. That's why I put it under old business.
Well, it wasn't on the agenda.
Whatever works.
Okay, well, what do you think?
I think Carol did that on purpose so that we could get to it before we were exhausted.
Mhm.
No, but in your minutes, didn't you refer to it, and you actually contacted Jean? So you must have you contacted Jean and said that we discussed it. So since you said that to Jean, we have to leave it as old business.
I'm inclined to leave it. I think it's fine.
Okay.
And I think as long as it's on the agenda, then we have what we need in order to discuss it.
I'd like to
And
remove
then
5A completely from the agenda.
You know what, Melissa, I understand why you're saying that, and I still think that we have to at least address it very briefly so that I can update the committee.
Okay.
I think we have to address it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know how much, I know why you're saying that. And I think that it may be on the agenda for the last time, but I do think that it should be on the agenda and part of our minutes to say at least something.
Mhm. And then I'd like to add the meeting calendar to old business, because like I mentioned in my email, I'm not sure about the time for the March meeting. So I want to get that settled.
Okay, we're going to add 5H meeting calendar.
Yeah. And then the numbers for 7, 8, and 9 should be 6, 7, and 8.
Yes.
I think that.
Yes, I would think that's a good idea. Thank you. That's a good one.
Okay, are there any further things to add to the agenda? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to accept that agenda as amended with added 5H.
I so move. So moved. Then seconded.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Liddy. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye if you're Liddy.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Melissa, let the record reflect that Melissa is opposing. And the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is to amend if necessary and then accept the minutes from our November 17th, 2021 meeting. If Yost read quickly, he will have seen that I made an error on the time. I've corrected it to 6:30 p.m., not 4:30.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any other amendments to the minutes?
No.
God
And
bless
I'll
you.
entertain the motion. Do you move, Wendy, was that a motion?
Yes.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Thanks, Liddy. All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye if you are Liddy on the phone.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The next item on the agenda, I'm checking because I have no memory right now, is to receive the treasurer's report. Liddy, do you have a report for us tonight?
I don't. I didn't get it done before I left the house. Yos, you did get paid, reimbursed for your conference?
I did, yes, thank you.
Well, then the treasurer's, nothing else has happened. I'll send it to you guys tomorrow, but it's the same as last time, except it now shows Yos did get reimbursed.
Mhm.
Is the trail books, do we have an item for the trail books on the agenda?
Yes.
do.
Yes, we do, later.
Okay. And that's the
Okay.
treasurer's report.
Thank you, Liddy. The next item on the
Okay.
agenda is public comment. There are no members of the public present. And now, I wonder if we ought to begin 5B and then come back to it when Jean is able to join the meeting, because I think that there was a lot of business that we could take care of before she comes on. Is everyone okay with that? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So where we left off last meeting is, Wendy, I think that you were going to investigate what other towns in Connecticut have some kind of, an open space commission or fund, and let us know what those look like.
I have done a fair amount of research. I've talked to the Northwest COG, among others. I do know that there are many ways to do this. Goshen apparently has a model example of this. Washington, interestingly enough, raised so much money through, I guess, the sales of properties that they have temporarily shut it down because they had $500,000 they haven't spent, but they find it works very well. I'll give you a full written report when I have a little more data on the different ways this is done, but it is widely used in the state and seems to be on the increase. That's my report for the moment.
Okay, so Wendy, did you get any feel as to whether or not it would just make sense for us to model ours off of Goshen? That was the ordinance that Bruce Adams brought to the Board of Selectmen back in, what did I say, 2013?
Yeah. That was the one recommended to me by Northwest COG. I could go further to speak to the retired selectman who led this and created that plan. I mean, I could come back with a couple of alternative ways too. I mean, different parts of the town's income that they generate can come out of different places. That's, generally speaking, people like to have a choice before they decide on something. So I was going to come back with a couple of other formula, but Goshen is a very good one.
Is that
makes
something-
sense.
Is that something you would like us to read? Is that available online?
Yes, I can do that. I'm never quite sure what I can mail around outside of the meeting.
As long as we don't respond to it, you can provide documentation to us.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I'll do. I'll write it up. I'll excerpt that particular program. I'll talk to the selectman and see if he's had any second thoughts about it. whoever I spoke to, is it Jennifer or somebody, said she thought he had a few things he would change if he were still there. So I'll find out what that is. And I will mail you something within the week, I guess, a Christmas present.
That sounds terrific. That sounds really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had checked out Sharon and Sherman, and they also had these ordinances. Now I can't find the copies I made of it, but I think both of them had a low amount of money, and they both had been talking about shutting it down because they weren't doing anything with it. I think Sherman in the past has used it for one purchase, but they have been non-active, and Sharon too, I believe. So they were kind of negative about it.
Don't you think it's kind of like the Cougar Fund, though, where it sits there until you potentially really, really need it? And so it's not something that you would be drawing on frequently, but it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think so.
Washington,
Yeah.
Washington used theirs most recently for, I think, some kind of eutrophication project on a thing that they'd already taken possession of, just to make it better. But I think it also, many towns allow it for more than one purpose, and we could consider that. I mean, open space is the one we're thinking about, but I believe it also could go to a couple of other townwide things that are desired. But I'll
Well,
put
there's
all that in the paper, in the thing I
There's a
write.
state statute that allows it to be used also for affordable housing and
Yeah, that was it.
recreation. But that's Sharon and Sherman, I think both had it only for open space purposes.
Yeah.
And that, I think, it'd be cleaner if we'd have it. Otherwise, you get fights between people who want different things. I mean, we want open space, they want affordable housing, somebody else wants sports fields. So I think it becomes very contentious then.
I agree with you, Yost. Making it as clear as possible so it's not up to interpretation is a key to making it
Yeah.
successful.
And there are multiple funding sources. So the fees for the PA 490 program is one. There's also, when there's a permit application, they have to pay a fee to the town clerk, and which was meant to go, a part of it at least, to the to open space acquisition. And in the past, Darlene mentioned that she had been collecting that money, and that when we were talking at that time about getting a land acquisition fund, she said, that money is for you. So I have it here, but she was putting it, I guess, at that point in the general fund or so. But
Well,
that
part
could
of what
also
I would
go-
do is to find out what different ways we could tap into this money and see how much money would be generated by, different approaches. That would help us make a decision. If it's a tiny amount, and very slow to grow, that probably wouldn't totally satisfy us. So I'll find out.
Mhm.
And can private entities put money into the fund also so that it could be like people who want to donate can donate?
Well,
Allowed for grants.
yeah.
No,
But,
but into the acquisitions fund.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have the Kent Community Fund and things that people can donate into, and they can certainly donate to a land trust if they want to do land acquisition. It seemed to me this would be a little bit messy.
If this technically would be a town fund, and so I think receiving private donations could be messy.
Well, there's discussion though for similar instances like with the Swift House where people are talking about, can you donate to putting money towards the Swift House? So that there is some discussion about how people can donate right to the municipality. So I would just want to be able to know if that is a possibility.
Okay,
I
I'll look
guess you
into it.
can
can
write
find
it
that
in
out,
the
right?
ordinance, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yes, exactly. Yes.
And then also,
so-
some of those ordinances also mention you can also spend money on maintaining the open space properties, which is important too.
That's
And I
what
think
Washington
that
does,
the
yeah.
ones I looked at both had the Conservation Commission in charge, or no, one had a separate commission, which had only met like a couple of times over the years. And the other one had the Conservation Commission in charge of the selecting the open space purchases, and then would go to the Board of Selectmen and the town meeting to approve it. And then the Conservation Commission could also receive the funds, but I don't think that would work in our case very well. And I like to make it possible to work with the Kent Land Trust on these kind of things, because they have the ability to do this and the experience, and we don't. So I
What
don't
do you
know.
think, what do you think the chances that we would be able to get it passed so that every land sale has part of it goes to this? I mean, is that, is, Wendy, that has been done in other towns? That's
Oh, yeah.
realistic?
It has.
Because that would be really good.
And I think, you know, part of what I'll look into is what did this town do with its money, and how successful has it been, and how long have they been doing it, you know, so that you have a sense of the thing works. So, but I wouldn't, I don't think pulling the land trust in unless, you know, we can't freeze out the other, the Northwest, whatever they call themselves. I mean, they are part of our regional land trust too. So if you've got, if you let the Kent Land Trust do it, you might be creating some other kind of tension, I think. By the way, the POCD that we just finished reading has a line in it that I took note of, which said that the Conservation Commission would be responsible for choosing open space. And I was pretty surprised about that. So we'll get to that when we go over the POCD, I think.
I just wanted to mention that back in 2013, when this was before the Board of Selectmen, Goshen was considering amending its ordinance in order so that a private land conservation nonprofit could be the recipient and holder of protected open space. And so I think that, and I don't know if that passed actually. So that is something to look at, Wendy, when you're continuing your research. But my sense is that an ordinance would not be written to specifically name the Kent Land Trust, but instead be general about the ability for a nonprofit land conservation organization to be the holder of the land.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you would also want to join forces. So both a land trust and the town could both contribute money to an acquisition.
So I think that, you know, when Jean is able to join our meeting, maybe what we ought to do is just let her know that we're continuing our research and expect to be able to make some recommendations and to ask that this be put on the select board's agenda. But I don't think it's quite ripe yet. Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree.
Now, I just want to understand the process. So the process would be that this becomes a topic on the Board of Selectmen's meeting. And then if it goes further, it somehow gets proposed as an ordinance. Like, I don't know what happens at that point.
Remember when we did it for the right to farm ordinance, Carol? We all worked on it here in this forum, and then we brought it to, I think we collected signatures to bring it to the town meeting. And then it was at the next town meeting that it was voted on.
Yeah.
There's a petition process to get it on the agenda for the town meeting.
But there's no time delay?
Or the selectmen can approve it to get on the town meeting.
Okay, but then to officially become an ordinance, does that have to be at a whole, it has to be beyond the selectmen then? They don't just vote for that, that has to be a town meeting.
Yeah, so either we can petition to get it onto a town meeting, or the selectmen can approve to get it onto a town meeting. But yes, the town ultimately has the right to vote on it.
Okay.
And remember, we got everyone out to and explain
Yes,
the right to farm ordinance, and then I think we held a forum or something so that people actually understood what we were talking about.
And we also got the Planning and Zoning Commission to support it.
Yeah, and we don't have to do that. Obviously, it behooves us to do
But that
that, to
helps,
bring as many
definitely.
in. Absolutely, but that's not part of the necessary process.
But this has to come back to Kent Conservation Commission before we go to the selectmen. So
oh, yes,
my goal will be to send you this document, and then at the next meeting, we will hash it out and refine it. And then
Well,
go from there.
I think we can work on it the way ARPA's been working on documents in a Google Drive format, right, Connie? We could all put it in a Google Drive and then put notes on it, and then someone amends it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the kind of report that Wendy prepares. I mean, if it's clear that it ought to be one way and not the other, then I would just say, let's, have her report and discuss it at our next meeting. I'm not really, at this point, that interested in wordsmithing it.
Okay.
But let's see, how much they deviate from each other and how much, choice there is. I think it's too early to tell. I'm hopeful it'll be pretty straightforward, and that we'll all agree pretty quickly on, what we want to recommend, and then we can kind of move towards getting that support from P&Z and from the select board. Sorry, I had a phone call come in, and potentially even from Board of Finance. So, yeah.
got it.
Okay, great. All right. Just doing the juggling act here. So the next item on the agenda is Sustainable Materials Management in Kent. I don't know who's on tap to report about that.
Well, since the last meeting, I think, has the staff been finalized now at the transfer station? Because last month, there were still some things up in the air.
I think someone left,
do
and I think they're back in rehiring process.
Okay.
They didn't discuss it at last night's meeting.
What meeting? Which meeting was that?
Selectmen's meeting.
Okay.
They did not bring up a hiring
Okay.
for that position. They had hirings. They didn't bring that one up.
And again, last time Jean said that she really wanted to be really open to changes. She wants to know from the community. Remember, we had discussed the transfer station being open another day. We had discussed people who don't have permits for the transfer station to be able to come and recycle the glass. So there's just things we're just going to keep following. But I don't think there's anything else we can do tonight.
That sounds right.
Agreed.
Okay, great. Let's move on to 5D, which is the update to the Trails book. And I have to admit that I'm not ready to tender the materials to you, Liddy, although Melissa provided a list of the 6 trails that need update from the Kent Land Trust point of view.
Okay,
Did you
well, we need
receive
to get
anything
going
from-
on it. But
Yeah,
I think
do
we
you
can
have
do it
anything
in
from
January
MCS?
13th.
Repeat that, please, Liddy.
NCLC
I don't know who's saying what.
Can you repeat what you said? Because we didn't hear you.
I said that we could get to work on it January and February. Neither John nor I have started doing anything on it yet.
Great. Has anyone else gotten back to you, NCLC?
No,
I
but
thought
I haven't been on top of it either. So I can bug people, but I'd like to do it after Christmas if that's possible.
Yes, that's perfectly possible.
Now, as far as our inventory of trail books, we have none. And the printer that I have been using, who has our book in her files, her parts are sitting in a container off of Los Angeles. So her printer is not working.
Oh, God.
Exactly. Now, maybe I could collect the files and get them to a different printer, but who knows what the quality will be and all that
Well,
stuff. So
I think everybody's going to understand that explanation, and just let's leave it at that.
Well, in the buying
I'm
season,
sure.
I mean, people have already purchased probably for their holiday gifts, so let's just take it come January 1st.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah. I mean, I'd love to have another 10 out on the 2 stores, but we don't.
Hey, if they're less available, they'll be more valuable.
There we
So,
go.
like, are you planning to sell your own, Yos?
I could, yeah.
Yeah.
Double the price.
Mine has a big sticker on it that says sample copy. I'm not selling it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it on the trail book then.
Okay. Well, thank you. I know we'll get through it. 5E is an update on sustainable CT.
I watched the meeting today. The last one that was posted, because they were meeting in person, so they weren't posting their meetings.
I read the minutes.
How many people do they have now?
3. But last night at the selectmen's meeting, they appointed another person, so it'll be 4.
There's no
So anything
update
that we
then
need to
really
know?
until,
They're progressing. They're talking to the Nature Conservancy about a workshop that would involve various members of the community, it sounded like. I didn't really get the gist of what the workshop was about. So they had attended some kind of conference call and met offline in their meeting process, and so it didn't make it clear to me what the meeting was about, what the conference would be about.
could I interrupt for a moment?
Sure.
Yes.
I have another meeting that I'm supposed to go to, and I don't know what the next items are on the agenda that I would then have to miss. Could you just give me an update on that?
Sure. It's the Clean Air Action Group, the POCD, which could be a longer conversation. The letter about ARPA funds, water testing for homeowners with wells. Ooh, I forgot 5H, which is our calendar to discuss our March meeting time. Standardized town communications to inform meetings, state legislative news, all under new business, and deferred to be at the end of old business is the update on the application to P&Z for the conservation subdivision.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to exit in about 10 minutes.
Can we take 5A then, very briefly? because this is what I need to say to you all as a commission. That upon my information and belief, the citizens group, which includes in membership Liddy Baker, who is our treasurer, may be preparing a claim against the town of Kent. I don't think that our commission has anything to discuss. And I want to put you all in mind that anything we do discuss from this point onward and anything we have discussed in the past is discoverable by attorneys preparing to defend a case. So any discussion that we have is costing the town legal expenses now. And any discussion that we have should include Liddy recusing from that discussion. Melissa and I will probably also recuse for good practice.
Yep, that's fine.
So I'm going to take us back to 5F, which is the update on the Western Connecticut Clean Air Action.
I guess that's for me to comment on. We're still waiting for some details. It's, basically, I think I've already told you the answer is we don't have a problem right now. And we're not satisfied that the period of time in which we did the testing is providing answers to go forward with, but there's not much we can do about that. I mean, we just, this COVID thing threw everything. But we're gonna continue to gather data, but it's not gonna cost anybody anything. We just go on as the group for these various towns. We're all keeping our own scores, and if something happens, we'll be ready to address it. But it's a kind of a nothing at the moment, a nothing burger, I guess you'd say. But we do not have bad air. That's the good news at present.
That is good news.
Like that.
Excellent.
You did notice perhaps that one of the other propane or gas-fired generator plant, I guess in Killingsworth, I believe that's been shut down, or it's been
Going to be.
paused.
Well,
I mean-
it wasn't built yet.
No, the state of Connecticut is coming around to not wanting this kind of thing, and so that's a bit
Yeah,
interesting.
and the ISO New England have withdrawn its support for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So given the shortness of the time, I think that's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I know.
So the consultant, is she still working for you, or
Yes, she is.
will
We're
it
waiting
come
for
to
her
an
final
end?
report. Just to make everything a little bit more confused, Linda Frank is having, family concerns at the moment, so she has fully withdrawn from this. And kind of so have I. Although I go to meetings and everything, but when we have something to tell you, we'll tell you.
Is
There,
there going to be a final announcement?
well, we had a mailing list that we were sending out to everybody, keeping everyone update. And when the final report comes, yeah, we're gonna broadcast out again that we have the report and sort of summarize what Wendy has said. So, but we're just sort of waiting on that report before we do that. So we're
Okay,
kind of,
should we put it on the agenda, or should we take it off the agenda until such time as we have that report?
we could take it off. I
That's
feel
fine.
okay with it.
That's fine with
That's
me.
fine. Sure.
Okay. Thanks, Wendy and Carol. It is good news that the air quality hasn't been negatively impacted, and it is good news that it will continue to be monitored. And by not having it on the agenda, we avoid the impression that there should be something to report.
Right.
And when there is something to report, which hopefully will continue to be good news, then we'll put it back on the agenda.
Agreed.
Okay, moving on to 5G, which is the POCD, which the subcommittee met on December 2nd and had, what in my view was a very productive meeting as they discussed the drafts that Glenn Calder had prepared on the chapters that, that Yost alerted us all to, and Melissa provided the links to. I was on that December 2nd meeting, listened to the whole thing. There will be changes made. But I think that if we want to discuss it this evening, we might as well. We don't have a new draft yet. So, keep in mind that what you see is not what you will get. And there are still multiple bites at this apple. In fact, they're not looking to finish the process until, at least the end of, I think, 2022. So there's still a year to go.
But do
That
you
was a
think we
great
should
meeting.
react to these two chapters? Because this is basically a draft that was presented, and some changes were suggested. Should we suggest any changes?
I thought it was a great meeting and I liked all the suggestions they made, and there were so many, and Glenn was saying, oh, that's great, I'm going to add this into there and that, so that I don't think that we can, I think it would be a waste of our efforts to make added suggestions when he's going to add more meat and potatoes to the actual document and revise it.
Yeah, I've got
In
a
much
lot of
more clear
nitpicky
way.
things. I would just bore you all to death with little comments at this point. So if there's more work to be done,
Let's hold off.
yeah,
Yeah.
But then isn't it better
let's
for him
hold
to
off
get
and-
all the comments in one go,
Yeah,
so he
let's-
doesn't have to redo it again?
Let's
I mean-
hold this off until we get his version, new version.
Yes.
Yost, don't you
That,
think
that
you
way
could
I
have
can
added,
leave the meeting without feeling bad.
Yost, don't you think you could have added during that meeting your own thoughts and processes? I mean, it sounded like they would have been open to hearing your thoughts at the time, and you were at that meeting.
I wasn't at
I
the
don't
meeting. I
that
watched
they
it
were looking
later.
for public comment.
No, and I don't think they want that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It seemed like they
Melissa,
would have been
they were.
open to it.
Because there were a lot of things said in error, and I actually, maybe I shouldn't admit this, but I was texting Adam the answers to some of the questions that they
Oh,
were
it was so
asking.
obvious, Connie. We already knew that already. It was obvious. Someone told me. That's what Adam
I
said.
do think that there will be tweaks that we can help them with when the next draft comes out. I tend to agree with Carol and Liddy and Melissa that it would be fine to wait until the next draft came out, because it was more, to me, it wasn't so much the subject matter of the chapters, it was just that there were little errors and inaccuracies that I think that we can make sure get corrected, so,
Connie,
so it looks
Connie,
together.
do we have any idea when the next draft will come forward?
No, they're still doing 2 chapters at a time. And in January, they're going to do another 2 chapters. And then he's
So
going to
they
be
won't
working,
redo 4 and 5?
not for a while, no. They're going to go through all the chapters. They're going to do 2 at
I see.
each meeting. And then they're going to bring it
Okay.
all together. So I think, as
So
long
we
as
don't
we're
get
watching, it's great.
we
but I
don't get a fresh look at 4 and 5 then for a long time.
Correct.
I have to
I'm
say,
gonna have to go.
I'm
Okay,
feeling
very-
pretty,
very-
oh, bye, Liddy.
bye.
Bye.
Bye. Sorry, guys. Bye-bye.
I'm feeling very optimistic about this whole process, and this is happening. I think this is all very positive.
I thought
Yeah.
the meeting was great. I really thought that they were on the right track, and I felt like everyone was keyed into the importance of how it read and to make it a usable document. And to me, I
Yeah.
felt like the right people were on the committee. We don't have to worry about the things coming out that are so very counterproductive to what, I just felt like it was great.
Yeah, good.
One thing that I think is helpful, if we were to go through and make, many little comments right now, we wouldn't even see those, for many, many months. And they might not even make them for many, many months. They might not pick it up again. But what I think will be helpful is that any of us can go back and rewatch that meeting. In addition to reading the minutes, we can go back and remind ourselves, oh yeah, this was the way that the P&Z was leaning on these things. Here were some places where I remember feeling like it's not quite right. And so I think that when we get the new draft out, that if we re-listen to the meeting, that it'll help to amplify what comments we might make at that time.
Agreed.
So in the general sense of the chapters, the overall, the way it's set up and the way it sounds, so you're all fine with that?
That was good looking visually. It was visually attractive, I thought.
Okay.
So
So
my-
you don't have the same
usable.
problems anymore you had with the previous POCD?
Well, it's a little shorter, I think, for one thing. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
The one
Well, I think
comment
it's hard
I
to
would
tell.
make, and I don't know who I'd make it to, is that there are so many places where the writer has chosen to speak in the passive manner when I would like to see it more assertive. We heard that the POCD isn't even looked at sometimes. I would love to have every one of these verbs be active, not passive. But that's my taste.
I think that's a fine letter to write to the P&Z as a citizen and see what they do with it.
I mean, I have examples with, where I think my reasoning.
It's a fair comment, and I think it's probably not a comment from the Conservation Commission, but one from a writer such as yourself. I think that, I would make the same kind of a suggestion as an individual that there be an effort to hyperlink within the document so that it was a little bit more interactive and a little bit more modern in terms of the way that it can be digested. But again, I'm not really sure, that is not a comment from the Conservation Commission. And
I'm not sure
and I
that
don't really know where it's at.
I'm not sure that he's not going to do that also. I didn't get the impression that that might be coming in the future. Because there was a suggestion from, maybe it was David or Mark, saying it would be good to have a appendix or a footnotes at the bottom of the page with exactly that. So, and he said, oh, that is a good idea. So I don't have the impression that that might not happen still.
Just a question of curiosity on page 19 of the conservation chapter, where they go into a list of all of adjectives that would describe how people feel about the village character. There was the word complexion, and I thought, wow.
They changed that.
Oh, good. I
They
thought
changed that. It was a typo.
it was a typo. Typo. For what?
It was the wrong choice of words. They
Okay.
changed it. It was a typo though, in that it probably auto-filled.
Okay, yeah. And I had a bunch of things to add in the list of historic and important sites in town, but that can be suggested later.
They also did talk about that, and they talked about taking out the numbers, or they want to make it so it's not in any order.
Mhm.
So that anyone interpreting it in the future in relation to any particular project that might come upon, they don't say, oh, well, that was listed first as number one. And
Yeah.
I thought that was a
Yeah,
great
that was-
suggestion. in all the things.
Specifically to the Northern Gateway, because when you mentioned that that was listed as a priority and they didn't want to give anyone more priority than any other.
Well, I think they talked about making it alphabetical because nobody
Yeah.
really knew how those had been numbered in the past, and it didn't seem to make sense.
It was a great
to have
suggestion.
Well,
that
at
number.
some point it became geographic, the order of the numbers during the rewrite. We made it, we numbered them geographically.
It was a great
So,
suggestion, and I think that it makes a lot of sense.
There's a question about the town character areas. He wanted to add Cobble Hill behind the town center and the dirt roads. And what do you think about that?
They had a discussion about that, Yost. I feel like there was, you know, I mean,
Well, nothing was said about it. We mean, they mentioned it, but nothing substantial was said about it. I think the dirt
Yeah,
roads,
personally,
I
I
went
think
through all
that
the
dirt
dirt roads
can
and
be part
almost
of
all of
our
them,
scenic road
almost
ordinance.
all of them
I
are in one of the town character areas already. So I really don't think they need to be named separately.
Connie, what were you saying? You were talking over Yost.
Just that we have a scenic road ordinance and that it just didn't, I mean,
Most of them are
didn't- I
not on that
wasn't-
list.
immediately enthusiastic about the idea of dirt roads being a town character area. It didn't seem to fit the same way as
Has to
Yeah.
be
we've done
more
that. in the-
descriptive than that, yeah.
Yeah.
Plain old dirt roads are not attractive necessarily.
And that was their conversation. Karen was saying how she likes dirt roads, but she doesn't, I think she said she didn't like living on them, or one of them said that. And,
No, she liked living on it.
oh, she liked living on it.
Mark,
I don't think
Mark
it was.
didn't like him. Or he
came
said
to the conclu-
many residents don't like him, or people.
I
who live
came to the
there.
conclusion that it wasn't necessary to draw them out, and that that's kind of where they landed too.
Right.
Stone walls works, but dirt roads doesn't.
Well,
Right.
they also suggested, do we need a stone wall ordinance? That's one of the things that mentions in there. I know that Wendy, you've been asking for that. I don't think it's very feasible, but it's by Glenn Chalder brought that up as a question. Do we want a stone wall ordinance?
Anything, we're multiplying our stone walls like crazy. And they're not necessarily good old Connecticut stone walls. They're almost fortress walls.
Well, that's one of the problems with it. Which walls do you include? Only old ones? And then can you repair them? Can you make them look suburban? And that kind of thing comes up.
So I would suggest that, I mean, there was that, the comment about, you know, using a Google Drive. What I think might be helpful for our commission when this new draft comes out is that we do have some sort of a Google Drive that would allow us to all place comments and make suggestions. And that would help us when we came together to discuss. And so I just think this is preliminary. I can tell you I'm not taking detailed notes on it for the minutes. And let's wait and see what Glenn does based on the discussion he had with the P&Z. I don't personally recall any places where the P&Z made comments that I was, you know, that I was opposed to. So
Agreed.
I hope that we see things come out that we, you know, really would have wanted to remain.
I did think that under the energy resources section, which is, I guess, in chapter 4, you're not quite up to date on some of the options. There is something called a community solar program now, which we don't have here in Kent, but it's coming in the future, I think, where multiple properties could combine to get a solar field. But I need to do a little research on that.
They also talked about the PA 490 open space, and Glenn Chalder said we should look into making it possible to put parcels of less than 25 acres into open space PA 490, but we have that already. At least the assessor has been doing that. Any land that is more than the minimum lot size required can be put into PA 490 open space. And another option would be to, in the plan of conservation and development, specifically give areas where you could use the PA 490 open space. Some towns do that. We haven't done that. And I don't think there's an ordinance that specifically says what land can be put in PA 490 open space. I think it's just, there was a decision by the tax assessor to that all the land that is above the minimum lot size count towards PA 490 open space. And the assessment for 490 open space is actually pretty high. It's a lot higher than for PA 490 forest or farmland. So there's not a very big incentive, but there's a bit of an incentive.
I would say again that I recommend that we wait until the new draft comes out so that we can make comments directly onto the draft, and that will help to aid our discussion, because I don't think that this is very useful, although interesting for us to have this conversation. We're not at this point, talking about taking any kind of action or making comments. So I would suggest that we move on if that's okay with you all.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the next item is our new item for 5H, which is the calendar. And I think this is what happened, Jos. I think that initially, when we were on a third week in March schedule, I checked when daylight savings time came, and it's on March 13th. And because of that, I made the meeting at 7 o'clock. And then we switched to the second week. So I switched the date, but didn't realize. It's published. I really don't think that Darlene will mind if we make an amendment. The question is, when do you guys want to start the meeting in March? 6:30 or 7?
I'm fine with leaving it at 7. It's Zoom now, so none of us are driving. It's not a matter of that.
Let's just leave it. It's easy.
Yeah, I don't care. I just wanted to clear it up what the intent
Then
is.
it's simple to just leave it as is.
Yeah.
Okay. March meeting will be at 7 p.m.
Okay, I will just make sure I'll make sure that I really know that.
Okay, we're going to move into new business. So 6A is on the letter that the ARPA assessment committee sent to all town boards to make them aware of the fact that there is ARPA funding that has been allocated to the town of Kent, and that the assessment committee is undertaking a fact-finding and data gathering exercise to find out what the needs of our townspeople, residents, business people, and town boards are in connection with ARPA. But more important, well, no, not more importantly, importantly, as an aside, we all should be filling out the ARPA survey, the link to which Carol put in the agenda. I do have to let you know that as of tonight, I've resigned as the chair of that subcommittee. So ordinarily, I would recuse from any kind of a discussion about whether or not the Conservation Commission is going to make any kind of an ask for funding. That's not an issue anymore.
How many responses have you had so far?
Over 100. Pretty good response so far,
Only 100 people have filled out the survey?
but that still doubles what they had in Sharon. And the survey's only been out for a couple of weeks. So the survey will be open until mid-January, and I encourage you all to take it.
So do you feel that a electric charging station could be paid for from these monies? Funds?
You know, it's not really an area that I feel completely set about, and and not really the charge of the committee to figure that out. In our committee discussions, though, because Barbara Herbst is part of it, she's been very conservative in terms of making any kind of a statement about what types of expenses qualify and don't qualify. So some of what we're reading coming out of New Milford, the expenses that they've approved are things that Barbara doesn't feel, completely sure about. Making whole or, providing aid to residents that actually suffered some sort of financial harm or hardship during COVID, that's pretty clear. So the survey is a really good way of finding out about those things. I don't really know about an electric charging station. I suppose that somebody could make an argument that because more people live in Kent and aren't driving great distances, they might be using more electric vehicles and therefore need a charging station. So like that connection is a little more tenuous. Like I can see, an organization like Steep Rock Association making a claim that they needed to have, additional infrastructure to help make sure that their parking lots didn't get over full or dangerous, or their trails stayed maintained because of the increase in use, and that's kind of conservation related. But I really don't feel like I have any kind of expertise that could say for sure.
But yeah, I was reading the spectrum of all the things that New Milford was approving, and I thought, well, if they can approve all those things, then this is certainly something that could be approved.
My question is, we know about the survey from the Selectmen's newsletter, and we also I got a mailing at home about the survey. So I think that only 100 people answering the survey, quite frankly, is very disappointing. But was the purpose of this letter to the commissions that they are open to having commissions give suggestions, or if that's not part of the protocol, then really, I'm not sure why we should be discussing it further.
I believe the idea was, and I wasn't the proponent who suggested or created the letter, that the idea was that town boards and commissions may have actually experienced needs that were related to COVID, or may know of expenditures that they'd like to make that are connected in some way to Kent's experience of COVID. So it really was an ask for, for ideas from boards and commissions about how, whether there were suggestions about expenditures or uses for the funds that were connected to their business in the town.
So we haven't really had any, I don't feel that we've had incurred any hardships by COVID as a commission. So.
Do these Zoom meetings cost any money?
Not to us.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on, Connie? Are we supposed to be quiet?
No. So,
So I think that also the intent of that letter, having listened to all the ARPA meetings, is that they're looking for people to sit on focus groups. They're looking for people to fill out the survey. And it was just an idea of getting this word out so that people listening to these meetings, all the people attending these meetings will actually follow through and report in, whether it be anonymous or writing your name if you have a specific request like that. I think we just are spreading the knowledge, and
Okay, fine.
so,
You're right.
tell your friends if you want to be on a focus group, report into the main email that you want to be on a focus group. But I think that was fact finding also.
And then sometime in January, it will be, the results of the survey will be published. That's a question.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
I would assume, actually.
I don't know.
Actually, I really can't say anymore. That was the intention.
Okay. I think we have to just go on. We've done our due
Due
diligence.
diligence.
I got it.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so let's go to 6B, which is water testing for homeowners with wells.
You remember that maybe 2 or 3 years ago, we heard about some other town, I think it was Sherman, offering a deal to local folks to have their water tested at the lab in New Milford. And this came back to me when I was told it was something wrong with my water. And so I started looking into it, and it turns out it's a snake pit, the whole matter of water testing, because most places want to sell you a whole lot of equipment right away. And my worst experience, I've been to 3 different outfits, and one of them was Home Depot that said, oh, we give free water tests. Well, first I went to Band & Wesson, and they came that they did no testing and said, oh, what you need is this thing. And that's going to cost you $2,400. So then I thought, well, I should really have a water test to know what's in my water if this is a problem. So I see this free test thing, and the New Milford shop didn't want to talk to me at all. They've changed ownership. So they're not even in consideration. So Home Depot comes, and I'm realizing I'm an average citizen. And this guy comes with a suitcase full of flasks and chemicals and stuff. And he goes through this whole performance in my kitchen, and turns out that everything about my water is poisonous. This is Home Depot, no less. And he finally, he takes the back of the envelope, and he then says, having showed me all these terrible things, that the basic cost is $12,000, but because I had just come out of the hospital with hip surgery, he's going to knock $1,000 off. And then, since I was probably going to live in this house for the rest of my life, he'd take another $2,000 off because I wouldn't move to another location and get the same deal. I decided that maybe the Conservation Commission could do a good thing if we could find an outfit that would truly test our well water with all the stuff that may or may not be in it at a good price. It would be a real service, because reading up now on water, it does alarm you some places. So I bring this to you to see if you think it's anything worth pursuing. I did find a company based in Palo Alto, but they have a Connecticut office that would do water tests for well owners at $75 a clip. The general price these days is $125 or more. And we'd be the clearinghouse for getting the tests, providing them to people who wanted to do it. And we would, this outfit then tells you not just what's in your water, but what kinds of systems. They don't sell systems themselves, what these systems would be ideal for your water situation. So this is just an idea I had, and I just got deep into the weeds on it because I realized the options for outrage are just enormous. So that's my story on that.
So
Can I just ask you one question?
Did they
Wait.
change ownership? Do they
Hydro
not do it?
Technologies, yeah, they're still there.
They're still there, but they were not at all interested in reviving that arrangement with a town
Oh,
their prices have gone up, and twice I spoke to somebody in the office, and she said she'd get to the boss. I never heard back from him. I never heard a firm answer about anything. And I was, after looking around a bit more, and I think I spoke to somebody at the Torrington Health District about water testing and so on. It's not an easy matter to investigate fairly, because the options for really hooking you on stuff are outrageous. And the fact that Home Depot would send a snake oil salesman to my house with this ridiculous offer of $12,000. I've been drinking this water at this house for 40 years, and it hasn't done me any harm. It just has a lot of rust in it, and I have a filter for that. But anyway, so I just thought I'd bring it back to the commission, because 3 years ago, everybody thought that was a great idea, that we should do that, and we just were too busy with other things. So that's what I know. And I can either pursue this Palo Alto group and get a firmer clarity on what they're offering for that money, and how valuable it would be, or we can just forget about it.
Is Hydro Technologies, Melissa, is that the group that's like, I used to be on Bank Street in New Milford?
That's where they are. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's where
I
they
mean,
are. And
I think that's what everybody uses. I mean, that's what we've used.
But it's
Yeah.
pretty expensive, right? It's
Well,
I don't remember it being super expensive. I mean, we do it every
it's over
5 years.
It's
or so.
$125 or more for a basic test.
I feel like that's probably what we paid. I
It is.
don't. Yeah, I don't think
So my
that.
goal was to be able to offer it to people at
Right.
a lower price, because of,
A quantity discount and
Yeah.
tell them that it's a worthwhile.
right. And this other town, when they did it, they had a way of picking up samples every day. They had a drop-off place, and they could get it to the lab within 24 hours. It was a very smooth running operation.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
That's all.
There's more involved in this than just providing testing. What we would be doing like this is we would be bringing attention to the fact that people should have their water tested, and we're opening up a whole thing about what should be tested, and are we concerned about our water? I mean, if it's just rust, Wendy, that's one thing, but I would be surprised that your water where you are would be challenged in any other way. I mean, our aquifer is not great. We do have chemicals in the aquifer, but we can't just say, go get your water tested, without also dealing with what's going on with our water, why, it's a bigger issue, right?
What happened was that 2 different people said, your water smells funny all of a sudden. And I looked that up, and that is bacteria that gets in, this feeds on iron. And so I thought, well, I don't like the idea of bacteria in my water.
No, okay.
What do I do about that? Well, there's 2 ways. It turns out if I turn my temperature up to 140 every now and then for a week, I would kill anything in there. I'd still have the rust, but changing the filters, I have 3 filters that I go through, and I go through them in very short order sometimes, depending on the weather. So this is how I got into it.
So this is about bacteria and contamination. It's not about pollution.
No, yeah, it's a sulfur reaction inside the hot water heater. It's only to your hot water. And it goes on in the heater itself. There's anodes in there that react to the iron and produce sulfur. And apparently it smells like rotten eggs. Well,
You have to deal with that.
My
You have
smell
to
isn't
deal
so
with
good
that, yeah.
anymore. I didn't even know anything about it. But that's how I came to do this. And I see what you're saying. I mean, it does make sense to me that having your water tested every now and then. I mean, if you read about it, they say you should do it every year. Well, nobody's going to do that.
No.
Well, we have it done every year. We're a condominium association. We're required to
You
have
have
tests
to.
every year.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do
And
it probably every
Hydro
5.
Technologies does it.
5. Yeah, that's more like what I would do in the future. Right.
And we definitely did it right before Aiden was born. And I feel like a lot of parents probably do that like that's probably one of the times where when you move into a house and then when you start having kids, like if you're going to be formula feeding and stuff, you probably think about it a lot more than
Mm.
others. So
Well,
I would think that a lot of people probably went through this because we had so many new people come to Kent recently. So they probably, Hydro Technologies maybe was overwhelmed with new people selling and buying houses.
maybe.
And maybe a little bit, thinking about it next year, maybe they'll be able to offer us a deal or something and get back to us. But we've always used Hydro. And so
My preference is to stay local, really.
Yeah, okay. Well, they definitely aren't interested in talking to us right now. I don't know whether the new
Oh,
owner.
but Wendy, we've got to get your water set up. This is
I'm about to, I figured out.
not good. This is not good.
I got it all figured out. It's not going to be cheap, but it won't be $12,000. Can you
No.
imagine saying we'll take 1,000 off because you just got out of the hospital? Home Depot? That's outrageous. So anyway, no, it's going to cost me 2,000. So that's that. Okay, I had two other things. I've been busy. You can see that. Standardized town communications, that goes back to the question of, when we wanted to send letters to the P&Z and the date changed and everything. And I found that none of our commissions publish a classic piece of information about how do you get in touch with us? How much time do you have? Who does it get mailed to, etc. So I called Northwest COG and they were really, really interested in this. They said, this is a great topic. She said, we would like to run it on our January or February meeting. They get together from all the towns and have a bull session on a particular topic. And so I thought that's fine. Let's see what they come back with. Something that would be standardized for all the commissions so that so that voters would feel they could be in touch with them and know how to do it effectively, which is not the case right now. So that's in the works. I hope to get back with some recommendations, but it won't be till January or February. But Northwest COG really liked doing it. So I'm done.
Okay. State legislative news.
That's only on the agenda each month, just if there happens to be something that we should be made aware of that's going on, either upcoming or preliminary committees, anything from, anything that we should just know what's happening. If there's nothing new, we don't have to, add to discuss it.
Okay. I don't think there's anything new.
February.
Say it again, Liz.
We'll start hearing stuff February, like the end of January, February. I mean, they're having meetings now and she's in Hartford, Craig's in Hartford. They're working.
I mean, her weekly videos are fabulous, but I haven't picked up anything from her that is something that we should be following right now. So.
No, I mean.
Yeah. Okay.
But she'll come in, or we can invite Craig to speak to us whenever we're ready.
Yeah. Now, Jean hasn't showed up, and again, what's going on right now is Johanna Hayes' town hall meeting. So I suspect that that's where Jean is at.
No, the Board of Finance meeting.
Well, she might be there too, but Johanna Hayes did a robocall. Yeah.
That started at 6, though.
Okay.
I was on that before. That started at 6.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in any case, okay.
So I feel like maybe then.
Correspondence? Any correspondence?
I haven't received any well, the ARPA one. But other than that, there's been no correspondence. So I think that we might be ready to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn 7:48.
I second.
Melissa and Wendy, it's 7. My computer now says 7:49.
Yeah, mine flipped to 7:49.
It's dinner time.
Almost. All right. Thank you all very much. The meeting is adjourned. I'm going to stop the